Universal Music Group. Universal Music Group is the biggest music label on the planet. It goes way back to the 1930s, but the version we know now came together through a bunch of mergers. The big one was in 1998, when they bought Polygram. That move gave them one of the largest music catalogs in the world. UMG is based in California, but it's officially registered in the Netherlands. In 2021, it went public on the Amsterdam Stock Exchange. Big investors like Tencent and Vivendi own major pieces of it. They do all the usual label stuff, signing artists, producing records, handling marketing, streaming, merch, and even song rights. They also do publishing, which means they manage the rights to the actual songs, not just the recordings. They're on a bunch of major labels, like Interscope, Republic, Def Jam, and Capitol. Through those, they've worked with names like Taylor Swift, Drake, Kendrick Lamar, Billie Eilish, Post Malone, and The Weeknd. They also manage legendary catalogs like the Beatles, Queen, Nirvana, and Bob Marley. Streaming is their biggest income source now. In 2024, they made over $12 billion, most of it from Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube. Catalog music, meaning older songs, brings in over half of that. Lucien Grange has been the CEO since 2011. He pushed the company hard into digital and streaming early on. That helped UMG land deals before a lot of others even knew how big streaming would get. They've also started investing in new stuff: AI music tools, data tracking, TikTok, and indie platforms like Virgin Music and SpinUp. Basically, they want to cover everything, from big stars to small independent artists. UMG has around 32% of the global music market, but it's not all smooth sailing. Artists now have more ways to go independent. Streaming growth is slowing, and there's more public pressure around contracts and ownership. Still, if you've heard a hit in the last decade, chances are UMG had something to do with it. Sony Music. Sony Music is one of the biggest names in the music industry. It started back in 1929 as the American Record Corporation. In 1938, CBS bought it and renamed it Columbia Records. Then, in 1988, Sony stepped in and took over, turning it into Sony Music Entertainment. That's where the name comes from. The company is based in New York, but it's part of the bigger Sony group, and it's not just a record label. They do everything: artist management, music distribution, global marketing, and publishing. In fact, their publishing arm, Sony Music Publishing, is the biggest in the world. Their artist lineup is stacked: Adele, Beyoncé, Travis Scott, Harry Styles, Doja Cat, Bruce Springsteen. The list goes on. And they own legendary labels like Columbia Records, RCA, and Epic. Each one has its own style, but they all operate under Sony. Sony was quick to adjust to the streaming era. They made strong partnerships with Spotify and Apple Music early on. And in 2021, they launched something called Artists Forward. That program forgave old debts for some legacy artists. So even if those artists hadn't recouped their advance, they still get paid for streams now. It was a big move. They also own some of the most valuable catalogs in music. We're talking Bob Dylan, Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston, and Elvis. These songs still make money every day. That catalog gives Sony a ton of power in the industry. Sony's reach is global. They're in over 60 countries and have been a major player in pushing Latin and Asian artists to international fame. Names like Rosalia, BTS through partnerships, and Bad Bunny. They're also putting money into regional music scenes in Asia and Latin America. Of course, it's not perfect. Some artists say if the deals are too strict, or that music can get shelved if it doesn't match what the label wants. And getting signed is tough. It's not just about talent anymore. It's about having a following, going viral, showing momentum. Once you're signed, the pressure goes up. You're expected to keep winning. Sony knows the industry is changing. That's why they're investing in AI music tools, immersive content, and even games. It's not just about owning songs anymore. It's about owning the whole experience. Streaming, syncs, tours, merch, and everything in between. So while Universal is the biggest player, Sony's not far behind. They've got the history, the talent, and the reach to stay in the game. Warner Music Group. Warner Music Group is the youngest of the big three record labels, but it's still a major force in the industry. It started in 1958 when Warner Brothers launched its own record label to get into the music business. Over time, it grew by picking up other labels and building out its roster. In the early 2000s, Warner split off from the movie side and became its own music company. Today, Warner is based in New York and operates in over 70 countries. It has the smallest market share among the majors, but don't let that fool you. They've got some of the biggest artists in the world: Bruno Mars, Ed Sheeran, Cardi B, Dua Lipa, Lizzo, Linkin Park, and more. They also own big-name labels like Atlantic, Elektra, and Parlophone. What makes Warner different is how it runs. Universal and Sony operate at massive scale. Warner stays a bit more flexible. They're known for giving artists more creative freedom and building long-term careers, not just chasing hits. Atlantic Records especially has a strong track record for spotting fresh talent early. In 2020, Warner went public on the NASDAQ, showing they were ready to grow in more ways than just selling music. They've put a lot into data, digital deals, and new content platforms. They've been quick to adapt to streaming, TikTok, short-form videos, you name it. They also jumped into influencer-driven content and partnered with companies like Splice and YouTube. They're trying to meet listeners where they are, not just where the old music industry used to be. Warner's publishing arm, Warner Chappell Music, is a beast too. It holds the rights to songs by Prince, Radiohead, Beyoncé, and Madonna. Owning songs, not just the recordings, gives them a cut of everything from movie soundtracks to commercials. That's a big piece of the business now. Of course, they've had their issues. Some artists have pushed back on contract terms or delays in releasing music. But overall, Warner is still one of the top places to be if you've got momentum and want to scale up. They're not the biggest, but they move fast, they take risks, and they know how to grow stars. That's why Warner's still up there with the giants, doing things their own way and proving that focus sometimes beats size. And that's it. That's the rundown on the big three, Universal, Sony, and Warner. They've all played a huge role in shaping what we hear today. If you like this kind of breakdown, hit like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments which label you think is killing it right now.